Hello and welcome to the Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm John Clark, and with me is Joe Barnhart. The Atheist Society of Knoxville meets every Tuesday at 5:30 at Barley's, downtown Knoxville. It's just a fun meetup, and mostly just a bunch of us hanging out. That's all there is.
But, having good discussion and interaction with each other.
As Forrest would say, both subjects topical and timeless, or something like that. And we just want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right?
And if you do, you shouldn't be alone either, and join us.
Right, exactly.
It's an open discussion.
And the Rationalists of East Tennessee, could you tell us a bit about that?
They meet the first and third Sundays at Pellissippi College at the cafeteria there, and they have a book club and reflections, and of course you can get the program. Do you know how to get it on the...
Oh yeah, rationalist.org. I managed to nab that domain name pretty easily.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's just go straight into the news here. Looming on the horizon, we have the 2014 American Atheist National Convention. It's going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. That's on Thursday, April the 17th, I think, through the 20th. And I'll be going. But anyways, I'm sure right after that we'll have a lot to talk about. Greta Christina, who we've had on the show via phone, will be there. I can't think of anyone else on the list that has been on our show, but there's going to be quite a few guests. We've talked about P.Z. Myers, who has one of the best, or most popular at least, and in my opinion, one of the best biology blogs out there. And let's see, what else do we get?
We had a very good discussion of on the biology at the last Rationalists of East Tennessee meeting. Very good discussion. I was quite impressed, very informative, and then a good presentation, and then open discussion, questions.
Yeah, you all are really good at that too, because I saw a presentation by one of the UT professors. I can't remember who it is right off the top of my head, but talking about flora in our gut, and this microbiota and positive, negative effects. Just we're finding out tons about it, and perhaps the future of medicine is to engineer those microbes to even diagnose, well, not necessarily diagnose, but diagnose illnesses and give markers that we can easily examine and find out a lot about someone's health just at a glance. For the basically, awesome group of people there. Also, something that we tend to rail on occasionally as rationalists is we always want to know if our medicines work, and we always have our skeptics out there, and then we have our deniers, and we get people that get really murky with medicine, and one of these alternative medicines known as homeopathy. Got an article here by The Guardian. The Australia's National Health and Medical Research Council has assessed the effectiveness of this medicine in a variety of health conditions. And there's, according to them, and quote, there is no reliable evidence that homeopathy is effective. We have the placebo effect, and of course they come in sugar pills. So if you, if you're someone who has issues with sugar and you need sugar, then you, there you go. You can take a sugar pill, and any sugar pill will do, including homeopathy sugar pills. But it's bunk. It's bunk, and in
fact, the placebo effect is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
in that if people expect to get well, that won't cure them.
Right,
but it may contribute.
Well, and
because for one thing, is if you expect to get well, you're more likely to do things to help you get well.
Yes, exactly. And you also a third of the time in medicine, for kind of silly little cases, up to I'm not going to call the flu silly, but some people when they get it, it's not as bad an experience as others, and people get better, and we don't know why. We have an idea why. It's something to do with the body regulating itself, but it may not have been the medicine they're taking. And we know this effect occurs, and it's a measurable effect that we can compare to a control.
So there's a good example of room for faith and skepticism.
Yes.
In medicine. Yeah. Medicine couldn't function without both trust and skepticism.
Exactly. So we analyze it, we critique it, and
then you think, well, we made a mistake.
And let me tell you, a word, and as according to Tim Minchin, and he has this great poem, Storm. Here he says, you know what they call alternative medicine that works? Medicine. And it's true. It's true. I mean, aspirin, right? That's from a root, and perhaps even you can get it in barks of some trees, but just from a root. And that was ancient medicine that we now have extremely specific parameters at which we administer it to people.
Condensed version. Yeah.
And all right. Anyhow, I guess we'll move on to our topic, Joe.
Okay, we're going to talk about grace, and with that goes faith. And most of us know, whatever the background we have, we understand these words, at least in some respects.
Now, I can see faith coming up. People are going to think a couple different things, maybe. Could you give us a definition of the faith you're talking about?
Well, I'm glad you put that, because the meaning of the word is the way people use it. And people use the word faith somewhat differently. There is such thing as rational faith, and there's blind faith. And to give an example, you're a mother out there, let's say, and you're talking to your daughter or your son. And your son says, I'm in love, or your daughter. And you, as a mother or a father, are saying, well, it's one thing to be in love, but it's one thing to say, is this a rational involvement you have?
Right.
The feeling of in love may not be a very good ground or a sufficient ground.
That passion is creeping in over the top of commitment and intimacy. Yeah, that passion's getting in there, and maybe...
And passion is a major part of human life.
Right.
But what we've learned is we have many passions, and they don't all harmonize. And part of what reason really is, it seems to me, is learning to take our many, many passions and harmonizing them. And that means we have to control some, and because they are too powerful.
Yeah.
And other passions are good for us, but they're not strong, and we have to encourage them.
Exactly. I do want to recap just a little bit. So for the skeptics out there, for the rationalists, people that are going to have a lot more in common with our groups that sponsor the show, this faith is not the faith we typically talk about on this show. We're not talking about blind faith today, because I just want to remind you, because we do that a lot. So now we're going to talk about faith in this really universal sense between all humans. Yeah.
It's ordinary language, just regular. We use the word faith, and I have a lot of faith in the person that I'm buying groceries from.
Oh, yeah.
That he's not going to cheat me.
Exactly.
Now, furthermore, there's a control system so that my faith is not blind.
Yeah.
And if he does cheat me, then I get more and more skeptical.
Right. You know, I got to say, I've really gotten lax there, because when I was like a teenager, maybe an early, I'm still an early adult, but you know, I was like 19 or 20. I used to work at a grocery store, so when I knew the change that was coming, and I would just eyeball it, and I would actually count it though. Nowadays, if it's light, and I knew it was supposed to be heavy, you know, that's my trick. I don't actually. So my faith, in this sense, is pretty strong. In the personnel that are working at the grocery store. And, you know, they're going to make a mistake every now and then. And if I notice it, you know, I'll, you know, throw it back. But, yeah, exactly. I've got a lot more of that. You know, I just don't bother with it anymore.
Well, I've had to teach my granddaughter, who's very good in making friends with dogs in the neighborhood. Not everybody can do this.
Right.
But in fact, my neighbor once said
terrible at it.
Something that, you know, his dog was kind of, sounds ferocious, just barks. And he said something to the effect, your granddaughters came over and they were friends. But I had to caution her that some dogs you can't trust, and I'm talking about trust and faith being the same meaning.
Exactly.
Or confidence.
Yeah.
And it's not a spooky word, it's just an ordinary.
Yeah, my little brother used to read meters for one of the companies that was contracted out here in Knoxville, and let me tell you, he's got some interesting stories about dogs. I'll say that, and they're not all the same, and the owners aren't all the same for sure either. But this concept of faith, I mean, this is something just like last show. This is something that is generated. I wouldn't say spontaneously, but it arises naturally from us getting together, from communities, from families and tribes. And
when people use a language, they're exercising a lot of faith that you will use the language in the sense that you'll use the words as they ordinarily mean, what they ordinarily mean, and not some special meaning, so that you miscommunicate. The whole point is to communicate. And let's talk about grace a little bit.
All right. Well, what about? Okay, well, last show we mentioned that when I'm doing good, we're talking about goodwill, and there's kind of a barter system. Maybe it's not always conscious.
I got you.
But I'm getting something in exchange. Even when I do something that looks entirely selfless. I'm even thinking of things in the military. I once had a tourniquet of one of my buddy's legs. I had to throw these 2 tourniquets on his legs. And was that entirely selfless at that moment? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it was or it wasn't, and I don't think it matters. Okay. But the idea of grace, some cultures might say that this is entirely selfless, or it's an idea that we strive to go for, right? We're trying to help out our fellows without with almost without need of anything in exchange,
to get something in return.
And then some might say there's still a little bit of return with it.
Okay, I think you and I could agree on this. If we help someone, they probably would get more out of it if we also get pleasure in helping them.
Right.
So that's not just my doing something and getting nothing from it. If I get the joy and pleasure out of seeing this person responding and getting better, then that's to my self-interest.
Yeah.
So I'm arguing that caring for other people is not selfless. That's a mistake.
Right.
It's a way of being your social self rather than your selfish self.
Getting something exchanged doesn't hurt the fact that you're helping anyone. No. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. And that's where that has a lot of evolutionary roots. I mean, we see that in all the animals.
See it in animals, exactly.
You see it in life that has no cognition. Because there's a cost benefit, and now we're talking about like even a natural order of exchanges of nutrition or whatever and information across, like, for example, cell membranes or something. But the benefit didn't matter. A lot of the times what's bad in the exchange didn't matter. The benefit was what exactly. And symbiotic relationship. And now that we have thinking minds, we can get this concept of grace out with intention. And unfortunately, we can sit there and go, you got something out of it. Maybe you didn't really mean it. And that has some merit to it. That conversation does. But we want to talk more about the generosity today, I guess.
Generosity comes from being in a community. Freely you have received, freely give.
Oh, right.
In other words, you receive good, and you know what being good feels like, and you want to share some of it. We've got a caller. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Charles from Central Illinois.
Well,
hello, Charles.
Hello.
Yes, today's topic, grace, okay? And it seems to be used by Christians to mean multiple different things. And they always seem to prefer it with God's sacred grace or God's holy grace, as if it was a separate item in the Trinity.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know much about that, Joe. Do you like?
Well, the concept of grace, they use the word agape, for example, and that's love that doesn't expect to get too much in return. That's presumably the meaning. But in other words, sometimes what they're talking is a person has a great need and doesn't have much to offer, and so grace comes whenever the one who has that which is to offer can give it.
Right.
And presumably in this view, if God has all of that to give, then and He does give it, or she does.
Oh, right.
Then that's, in that context, that means grace. It wasn't earned. It's just good fortune.
Right, Charles. I get the feeling you may have had something else to say about it.
Yeah, it seems to act as if it's a blanket pardon, provided you agree with what seems to be the specific evangelical's viewpoint is.
Right.
And I find that to be very self-centered of them.
Okay, let me try and see what you think about this. Just as there are many kind of atheists, and from, as I've mentioned before, from Joseph Stalin on to you, and that's a big range.
Yeah, yeah.
There are many kind of evangelicals, to say nothing of many kinds of Christians. Are you with me?
Yes, I've noted that rather substantially.
I think, Charles, I think just to narrow it down a bit, I think what Charles is getting at is that there are a few that stand out in the way that they say, for example, if you don't want to burn in hell, they start off in a pretty negative manner. Then we need you to accept grace, which is freely given, and so is that closer to what you meant, Charles?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So each of the evangelical groups and many of the Christian groups,
Yeah.
from Catholicism on out, all have different varieties of what they mean by accept grace.
Well, Charles, just to let you know, today's show, perhaps I didn't quite make it clear. We're I don't know if you saw last week's. Did you see last week's show?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in a way, we're talking about grace as an overlapping theme of culture and civilization, and we're trying to concentrate on the good side of it. Now, I agree with you totally. I think Joe gets it too.
In fact, what he's talking about is the opposite of grace. It's gracelessness.
It is.
The doctrine of hell is not a very gracious concept. It's a mean concept.
Exactly.
What we're talking about is the opposite.
And
as a matter of fact, I would argue that the concept of hell is mostly invented by people who don't have much, that is, it's by a subculture that didn't have much to offer, and so to create a supply, they invented this concept of you need to have our version of grace, and we're saying, no thanks, we don't need it. We've got all other kinds of grace that's much more useful and meaningful.
So this extraordinary type of grace came about in that manner.
An ordinary grace is just sufficient. Now, if there are people who believe, there are many Christians who have simply put aside the whole notion of hell. They think it's absurd and evil, and they've put it aside. A lot of churches have simply put it aside, and they have a notion of God very much like a notion of nature. That nature can give you a lot if you're willing to learn from it. Yeah. And nature can take away. And there's a passage in the Bible, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. You can say nature gives and nature takes away.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask Charles if he had anything else for us.
Well, you're going to the Salt Lake, Utah meeting.
Yeah.
And I believe Aaron Law and Matt Dillahunty are both going to be there.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Really good company.
Yeah. I've gotten to meet them before in Texas, so I'll get to meet them again.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say I'm kind of envious you. I can't break away from here.
Yeah.
You're going out there in Mormon country, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I am. He's not.
He's not going.
But.
And I understand that for all the religious statements that they make about Utah and so forth, it's also one of the highest internet pornography users in the United States.
Oh, right, yeah, right there around the borders. This is true, and this is why the American Atheist Convention is being held there. This is that kind of tip of the spear thing we're talking about, where we can show that, you know, even Salt Lake City is America, and this is a necessary step in getting people to understand that we can all share the public sphere to a degree, even though this is privately in some areas. But and in that sense, I like being at the tip of the spear.
I got you.
There is a lot of I don't intend to rub into any Mormon's face anything while I'm there, and from my experience with them, they will likely not do the same. They'll, you know.
Well, when I was in Utah, I met, and my wife and I did, some good Mormons. And in the sense of good is they were pleasant and they were respectful, and you could talk with them back and forth with, you know, calmly.
And I used to live in Utah.
Tell us.
Up in Park City, Utah.
Go ahead.
And I met both the ones you know, like to shake a hand, sit down, and let's see, well, what doesn't have caffeine in it? Have a good glass of milk or something. You know? And talk about, you know, sports and or whatever. And then there are those you want to take a baseball bat to the head to keep make them shut up because they're driving you crazy.
This absolutely,
Let me try this on you and see what you think. We met these Mormons in southern Utah, and my wife has been very much interested in family relations, and I mean, she's a counselor, and also she has a sociology, partly in family relations. So we wanted to talk to some polygamists who, since we're in Utah, and so one of the Mormons says, well, that's not part of our faith anymore, but there are some Mormon, what they call Mormon fundamentalists, that was their word.
Interesting. Fundamentalist, like
And over in northern Arizona, and they were polygamists. And so I went over there with my wife, and we went to the post office to say, we're not here to cause trouble. We want to learn what it's like and see how your children. So we were able to go. We went to the sheriff, and I asked the sheriff. I said, "How many wives do you have?" And you know, I didn't ask it so bluntly.
Right.
Because you know, I wanted to show him respect and let him tell me. Well, what was interesting is we had a very good conversation, and he opened the door for us to talk to many of these people to see how these wives were also sisters to each other.
Yeah.
And how they used each other to help raise their kids. And I thought, well, maybe others could learn from that, not in the sense of multiple marriage, but that you can have other people helping you raise your children. And that was something.
That sounds more like an extended family.
Right.
Instead of having just father, mother, kids, you have father, mother, and multiple adults doing different kinds of mentoring and things of that nature that are related somehow, either legally or by blood.
Right, yeah, I think you're on target on that. And it struck me that this had a real enriching aspect in that particular local community for those children. And one of the songs they were singing was not a religious song, but they were singing, it was My Fair Lady. They were they were really just
like the hills are alive. Or wait, My Fair Lady. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
From the musical. Yeah.
The rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain.
But you were in Utah, you said.
Okay, I'll let you go. I'll go and let you.
Okay, Charles. Yeah.
Caller and the rest of your talk on grace.
Well, thanks for calling us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm tempted now to just to turn that a little bit because I'm sure some of the viewers, you have I want to say it's a feminist perspective, but
go ahead.
It's a humanist perspective to me, but
yeah, you're right.
Oh,
I'll turn that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
But you know, when you have multiple wives, how much are we sharing the ground here? But that's their way of life. And so I'm thinking of Joseph Smith now. He had Quite a few, yeah.
He had legally 53 wives.
And so here's the question I have.
Go ahead.
Do you think that was an extended family in the same sense as the people you met?
No, in no way.
And isn't that strange?
Yeah.
Because the people you met are genuinely striving to make a family. It was an interesting situation. I'll just say that much. And the point is, and we'll drive it back to the show, and the point of the show, grace.
Exactly.
Within that family that you met, you had this act of grace probably manifesting itself, and despite some of the nasty history regarding multiple wives, because there's certainly been a nasty history revolving and even current settings. But yeah.
In fact, you could say the same with just two couples. There's a good history and a nasty history, the way they treat each other.
Well, listen up. I think I'm going to break us for the halftime show here.
Oh, already?
I do hear a call outside. I think they'll hold though for us.
Have we got a call outside?
Well, okay, we can wait for it. We'll wait for the call.
Okay, well, our concept is grace, and I'd like to explain the evangelical view of faith so they'll know that we have sensitivity to try to understand. Part of grace, I think, is to try to understand other people and where they come from. And that's hard work, because when people are different from you, go ahead. Here we have a call.
Yeah, we'll go to call.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, caller. We're waiting.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, caller. You're live. Could we get a name or nickname for you?
Richard.
Go ahead, Richard.
All right, Richard. Yeah, what do you got for us?
Why do you not believe in Jesus?
That's an interesting question.
Let me ask you, and we'll go back and forth. Have you got time to talk with us on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think Jesus was God in the flesh?
No, I think there's a God, and I think his son is Jesus.
Okay. Now, the traditional, see, when we talk about Jesus, there are different versions. Understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And one version, which is Orthodox Christianity, is that God, according to the first chapter of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that's interpreted to mean Jesus was God, and he became a human being on earth.
God was Jesus' father.
Well, now, you may have a different version of Jesus than the Orthodox Christian, and that's okay. I'm not trying to argue one is better than the other right now. I'm just trying to show the difference.
I think there was a bit, if you don't mind me saying, Richard, you said, why don't you all believe in Jesus? And I got to say, I don't think the question is specific enough. But let's look at it from at least a historical perspective. Can I say Jesus existed or not? I mean, I would be... Yeah. I would think sure, and we've got multiple historical perspectives on it. So my answer to you, I hope you don't mind, is that I believe in Jesus.
Do you believe that if you're not saved, you won't go to heaven?
Oh no, I don't hold to any of those doctrines.
No, in fact, see that's the point, is that there are views of Jesus, and then there are views of theology that are attached to Jesus, and that's fair enough. But nobody can believe all those views, so you have to separate as to which ones make sense to you and which ones don't.
Well, I think Richard's at least told us that you think of Jesus as the Son of God, and so I assume you've got a Christian perspective on this. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, Richard.
Yeah, you go ahead. And
do you think you might be able to throw another question at us now that we're narrowing it down?
Okay. Basically, what I have grown up to believe is that once you're saved, you go to heaven. If you're not saved, you won't. And atheism believes that, tell me if I'm right, atheism believes that you don't believe in God. So if you're not saved, basically you're going to hell.
Okay, let me ask you this.
You believe there's a hell?
No, I don't.
You don't believe there's hell?
Oh, no. I think that's just a mean view that human beings invented out of rage.
So do you believe that? Do you believe when you die, it's just over, you're just in the ground, that's it?
As far as I know, which is a lot better off than being in hell.
I'll extend it slightly, though. I mean, I do things that will carry on after me.
Oh, sure.
My grandfather certainly did. And
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: what if you have any doubt in your mind whatsoever, and are you willing to take that chance? Because what if you did die and go to hell and burn forever?
Okay. Well, see,
wouldn't that suck?
You got the same problem. What if you got the wrong view of who Jesus is?
What if you're wrong?
You still go.
Okay, I'll give you that. What if I'm wrong and I die and it is what you say and it's just over?
But then you...
Okay, well, if I'm saved and I believe that I'll go to heaven or hell if I'm not saved, then I'm not really taking a chance, because if I die, then I just stay in the ground. But if I'm saved and I ask Jesus to come in my heart and save me, and there really is a Jesus, and there really is a heaven or hell, then I'll go to heaven, and I won't have to take the chance. You're taking a chance.
Well, here's a chance you have. See what you think. With the
I'm just wondering why you'd want to take that chance, is all I'm asking.
Well, you're taking a big chance, too, with your view, you see.
Okay, tell me how that is.
Because, this is the way I look at it. With a being, which you call God, and I wouldn't, because it wouldn't be, he's not decent enough to be a God, you see. But what you call God, and I give you that, you do, and I respect that. But being that mean and vicious toward his creatures, you couldn't trust him anyhow.
Yeah.
So you take a big chance.
There's no way I would want to go to the heaven you're talking about either.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it.
And I couldn't believe it. Let me ask you this. If someone offered you $18 million, and I think you could use it, to believe... I think you're right. Because you could do a lot of good with $18 million, but to believe that you are a giraffe for a year, to really believe you're a giraffe for a year, could you do that for $18 million?
Could I do that for $18 million and believe I was a giraffe?
Yeah.
No, because I don't look like a giraffe.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I do want to say, I don't know what you look like, Richard. I kind of want to make a science joke. You kind of do look like a giraffe because we've got similarities. But anyways, I'm just being silly.
Well, you got a point there, because I am 6'5".
I'm just envious of you, that's all.
Yeah.
I could use about 5 of your inches. But anyhow, your point is, if this is a gamble, but what I'm trying to argue, and see, I agree, if you call it a gamble, then of course, from your point of view, you've got a good gamble. But what I'm trying to say, and see if you can follow me on this, I can't believe something that I think doesn't make any sense. Even if you offer me $14 million or to go to heaven, if it doesn't make any sense to me, I just can't bring myself to believe it.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does it not make any sense to you because God is something that you can't see?
Well, it's if you're doing the Christian, you came in with Jesus now, okay?
Right, you can't see Jesus, God, or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the whole thing about Jesus and God, you have to have faith.
Okay.
Would you define faith? I think it's fair to say that Richard is speaking about the faith of Thomas Aquinas. You know, the more of a blind faith. I hope you don't mind the words.
No, he wouldn't. But were you listening when we were talking about faith a moment ago?
No, I just turned it on.
Oh, okay. We talked about faith. So what I like about you, Richard, is the way you calmly talk with us, and we really appreciate.
Yeah, I'm not. I see that. I see you have your own. You have a right to believe the way you want to.
Yeah.
I don't understand how somebody cannot believe in God.
Okay, that's all right.
And I understand that you can't see Him.
Do you believe in the devil?
Huh?
Do I
believe in the devil? Sure.
Okay, now let me ask.
He tempts me every day.
Okay, let me. Now I'm tempted, but not by the devil. Now let me ask you this: on your theology now, will the devil, in the end, be imprisoned, like it's said in the book of Revelation, imprisoned in hell forever? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Will the devil be imprisoned forever?
the devil will not be in prison forever until Jesus comes back in the rapture. Let me just.
Well, wait a minute.
Have you ever read the Bible at all?
Well, yeah, many times. In fact, I've read it.
Do you know the story of?
Go ahead. Go. Believe it.
Okay, let me ask you this: Does it not make any sense to you because God is something that you can't see?
Well, it's if you're doing the Christian, you came in with Jesus now, okay?
Right, you can't see Jesus, God, or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the whole thing about Jesus and God, you have to have faith.
Okay.
Would you define faith? I think it's fair to say that Richard is speaking about the faith of Thomas Aquinas. You know, the more of a blind faith. I hope you don't mind the words.
No, he wouldn't. But were you listening when we were talking about faith a moment ago?
No, I just turned it on. Right?
Oh, okay. We talked about faith. So, what I like about you, Richard, is the way you calmly talk with us, and we really appreciate.
Yeah, I'm not. I see that. I see you have your own. You have a right to believe the way you want to.
Yeah.
I don't understand how somebody cannot believe in God.
Okay, that's all right.
And I understand that you can't see Him.
Do you believe in the devil?
Huh?
Do you believe
Do I believe in the devil? Sure.
Okay, now let me ask.
He tempts me every day.
Okay, let me. Now I'm tempted, but not by the devil. Now let me ask you this: on your theology now, will the devil, in the end, be imprisoned, like it's said in the Book of Revelation, imprisoned in hell forever? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Will the devil be imprisoned forever?
The devil will not be in prison forever until Jesus comes back in the rapture. Let me just.
Well, wait a minute.
Have you ever read the Bible at all?
Well, yeah, many times. In fact, I've read it.
Do you know the story of?
Go ahead. Go.
Meshach, Reshach, and Abednego.
Abednego, sure.
Okay, they're in a furnace of fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they believe in God so strongly, and they have faith that He will bring them through that fire.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that when the man that put them in that furnace, he looked in there, and there was only 3 men that he put in there.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? When he looked in there was 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know who the 4th one was? It was Jesus, and He kept him from being burnt. And let me make one more illustration.
Yeah, go for it.
If you have faith in Jesus, okay, and you're going through struggles in your life, and you're walking through a beach, and you only see 2 feet print in the sand, and you turn around behind you, and you think, well, if Jesus is walking with me, there should be 4 feet print.
Okay, now have you noticed?
Guess what?
Now, did you notice?
The 2 feet print is actually Jesus. He's carrying you.
Hang on, I have a second theory.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Did you notice that when I asked you a question, you changed the subject? Because this question I was giving you, I don't know whether you could handle it or not, but let's go back to it.
Okay, yeah.
On the devil. You switched the topic completely.
Yeah.
Now, if I can ask you this question, let's see if you can give me an answer. Okay, on your own theory, okay?
Okay.
Now, I ask you, on your view, does the devil go to hell and stay there in torment forever and ever at the end? And that's according to the Book of Revelation. Do you accept that?
Do I accept that he will go
Do you believe
and stay
that?
there forever? Yes, I do.
Okay, now on your view, can the devil be saved?
No.
Okay, did God know this before He created the world?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, did God know this before He created the world?
No.
He didn't know this?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because in Genesis, it says that this is how sin started. There was an Adam and there was an Eve, okay? There was a serpent of the devil, okay? So
no, Genesis doesn't say that serpent was the devil. But I'm going to your theology. Now,
Okay, he was the serpent of the devil,
are you an evangelical Christian?
Am I what?
Are you an evangelical Christian?
What's
Evangelical. Okay. I'm with you. Your view is not the standard Christian evangelical or conservative
version of Christianity. You've got another version of your own, and I didn't understand that, okay?
Okay, well, I don't believe in religion to start with. There is no such thing as religion. There's such thing as
let me ask you the question. Do you have a devil in your theory or not?
Yes.
But is God omniscient on your theory? See, I'm trying to figure out what your religion is.
Okay.
Or whatever you want to call it, okay? That's fair enough, I think. Is God omniscient?
Yes.
Okay. Now, to be omniscient, he would have to know, otherwise he wouldn't be omniscient. See if you agree. This is by definition. God would have to know the total outcome of the devil before he created it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be omniscient.
Okay, he did.
Okay, now, let me ask you this. Did God know before he created it he would never be saved?
Of course.
Okay, that was my point. Now, my next point is, why, if this devil is not going to be saved and God knows it before he was created, why is it he's keeping the devil going? For what purpose?
Okay, I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Because God wants people to have faith in him, okay? So he lets the devil tempt you.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make a decision whether to serve God and have faith in God, or you serve the devil.
Okay, now let me ask you this. This omnipotent God, do you believe God is omnipotent?
I done said that, yeah.
Well, he's omniscient, but you also believe he's omnipotent. He has all power. He does or doesn't? I'm just trying to find out.
I think Richard was saying yes to both.
Okay,
actually.
good.
Yeah.
Now, could God arrange for you to be tempted without a devil?
So basically you're saying that when you go through struggles in life...
No, answer my question. Don't try to change the subject. If you can't answer it, that's fair enough. Could God let people be tempted without a devil?
Can God be tempted?
No. Could you and other people be tempted without a devil?
Could God, being all-powerful, could he have done this another way without the devil?
Well, I'm sure he could have done anything, but that ain't how he chose to do it.
Now, let's suppose you knew of a criminal, a real criminal, who had committed rape and murder and stealing, the whole works.
Right.
And got a lot of people involved in crime.
Right.
And you can arrest him, okay?
Right.
Yeah, in fact, you're going to do it. Now, why would you wait 30 years before you arrest him?
Why did I wait 30 years before arresting him?
In other words, if you knew this criminal is at large, doing all these horrible things, why would you not arrest him at once and incarcerate him at once? You see what I'm getting at?
Okay, so you're saying there's a criminal out there.
Yeah, uh-huh.
He's raped, murdered, stole, everything.
Exactly, yeah. Uh-huh.
And why would I wait 30 years to arrest him?
Yeah, if you could arrest him immediately and stop him.
Me or Jesus?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about you.
Well, if it took me 30 years to arrest him, then that means it took me 30 years to find him.
Well, my point is, if you could arrest him this week and had the power to do it, would you? Through the law, of course.
If I could arrest him this week, would I arrest him?
Sure.
Yeah, of course I'd arrest him.
Okay, now my question is...
But that don't mean God don't still love him and can't forgive him.
Well, that's a good point. Now, my point is...
Now, he will serve his consequences for what he's done.
Okay, but I'm trying to get you to see my point. Stay with me, will you?
Yeah, I'll stay with you.
Okay, now, why does God not go ahead and arrest the devil now, and rather than let him do all this evil and destruction, knowing that he will not be redeemed at all?
Because God leaves the devil to tempt people.
So
I just told you that, to tempt people.
Okay.
And he wants to know, he wants to see when he convicts your heart.
Okay.
Are you going to go with the devil, or are you going to go with him?
So
you have faith that he'll pull you through the things in your life, or are you just going to go ahead and go to the devil?
Okay.
So
Okay, now you've made your point. We already know the point. My point is God has he needs the devil. That's what you're saying. He needs the devil. He can't operate without him.
No, I didn't say he needs the devil.
Well, you just told me he can't operate without him.
No, I didn't say he couldn't operate without him.
So
I said he chose.
The logic of your view is God could do it without the devil, but he won't.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. If you got a minute, I'll go get my Bible and I'll explain it to you even thoroughly.
Well, I thought you got good brains. You got good brains. I can see. You tell me now.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Hang on one second.
Okay.
I'll tell you why he needs the devil.
Go ahead. Now, while he's gone,
Yeah.
my point is that on this view of the devil, that's why his view of God makes no sense to me. He's using the devil as his henchman.
Right.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let's take the devil out of it, okay?
Well, no. Your God, what you're calling God, has to have the devil. Otherwise, you need a new view of God. So I can't just say, well, that's just incidental.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Let's say you didn't. Let's say, just for a minute, do me a favor and take the devil out of it.
Sure.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Do you believe in God at all?
Put it this way. I don't really have enough knowledge to be absolutely sure. What I do have enough knowledge...
Okay, well, if you don't... Stop right there. If you don't have enough knowledge to be absolutely sure, why are you on a show telling people that they shouldn't believe in God and you're an atheist?
Because you don't have enough knowledge to know everything either. I mean, that's kind of obvious also.
Well, then maybe you should study more about it.
Well, I think both of us should study more, and we're in agreement on that, okay? Now, I spent many years in a theology seminary and learning Greek so I could read the New Testament. So you can't say I haven't studied this. My point is this. See if you agree with me or not. I mean, it's good. See, I like the way you can agree and disagree, and that I think that's graciousness on your part. And I hope it's graciousness on my part.
Yeah, Richard, just so you know, last week we had a really nasty call where a guy called in and said some words.
I'm not trying to do that.
So we just want to say thank you. That's what we're saying. You've been a very pleasant phone call.
Very appreciative, and I know this is hard.
Yeah, because I just don't understand how people can't believe in God.
Well, you see, what I'm saying to you, and see if I can make what you're calling God, from my point of view now, and you want to know my view, it just doesn't measure up to a God.
Yeah.
In other words, might, even supreme might, does not make right. It's got to be God, it has to have moral standards in what you're calling God. Now, this is different from you. It's greatly different. But what you're calling God simply doesn't measure up to being a God.
You don't believe God can comfort you in the time of need?
Now, what you're calling God is not a God to do anything. Now, there are views. Here's another view of God, and see what you think. There is a view of God that says all of nature, you believe in the Christian view, the Orthodox Christian view is that God came in Christ in the incarnation. There's another view, and many Christians hold to it, is that God is incarnate in nature. And so from that viewpoint, everybody is always in contact with God, because God, nature in that sense is to God as our body is to our mind.
Yeah.
So that we, in studying nature, in all of nature, we're constantly in touch with God, and scientists in particular are studying God's nature.
And via Joe's definition there, I mean, that puts us under almost God-believing individuals.
Yeah.
But I do think we owe one more explanation to Richard, because we are running out of time, Richard. Because you said, why don't you believe in God? Or why do you call yourself an atheist? And I think that probably is confusing to you. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. The definition of atheism is without theism, basically. If I am not a theist, even if
What's a theist?
That's a believer in God. Yeah.
Someone who believes in God. You know, you have a positive assertion of God. I don't know, right? Joe said he didn't know. I'm saying I don't know, right? That makes me an agnostic. Okay? That makes me, the knowledge is
So
either...
you have a doubt there.
Oh, I have, lots of doubts.
That's part of what.
Yeah. I doubt almost. I guess I doubt everything I do, everything everyone does.
Okay, well that's a start.
But I want to explain. I want to explain using the word atheism because that's probably confusing. And here's why: because atheism and agnosticism are not mutually exclusive. I can claim both of these terms because number one, I don't have the knowledge. The knowledge may not even exist. I don't know. And that makes me an agnostic. I don't believe in God. Why? I don't know. No one has shown me that God is real. No one has even, now you did give somewhat of a definition of God, but no one's even made it to that point where look, here's a book right here. I can read this book. I believe in this book. It's here, right? You asked me if we believed in Jesus. I believe in historical Jesus and many perspectives of Jesus. Now, is that the same as me believing in Joe Barnhart sitting next to me?
Right, but I'm asking you, would you want to take the chance?
Absolutely.
Well, do you honestly want to take the chance that if you die and you're sitting there saying, I don't know for sure. Well, what if you died and you went to hell and then it's too late and you thought, man, maybe I
because your heaven is just as bad.
So you're, in other words, what I'm trying to say is you're already got a God who is not trustworthy. He's too mean, too vicious. You're not a Muslim. What if you don't believe right? You could still go to hell. You're taking a big chance, brother.
Yeah.
Now, here's another view of God. Try this. Here's a view you could say.
Right. So, what kind of chance am I taking if I go your way, and I just go in the ground?
Okay.
Well, I just go in the ground.
Well,
but if you take a chance and go my way, you either go in the ground or you burn in hell.
If you don't mind,
or you go to heaven.
If you don't mind, let me jump on this one. You're asking what's the good part of believing the way we believe, basically, and would it be worth it to you? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I know the answer that I gave, that I found myself. Because I used to be quite a believer, and really just ignore that portion, all right? Because even my friends who never had the belief their whole life, what they get in exchange is they see the world for what it is through eyes, not just their eyes, but through every other person's eyes who can sit at the same table and confirm that they've seen the same thing. And to a degree, we have faith between each other. To a degree, we examine the world and everything that we touch and feel, and that we can repeat, test, and verify. Those are things that we can agree about. And look at this picture behind me. Well, look at the picture behind me.
Richard's point of view is he can't see God.
Okay, let me say this since we don't have much time. Just let me say this one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just let me say this right here.
All right.
If you'll do this one thing and take one chance and went to a Baptist church, let's say, and you really, really gave it a chance, okay? And if God convicted your heart and you walked up to the altar, or you don't even have to do that, you could be at home, and you said, Jesus, come in my heart and save me, and you were sincere, and he was convicting your heart, I promise you, when that was over and you feel the peace that you feel that comes in your heart, you will know that Jesus is real. I promise you, and you will have a desire, and it will change your life. And that's the proof that you need.
Okay, try this. I know exactly what you're talking about, okay? I grew up in the Baptist church. I was baptized in the Baptist church. I know the peace you're talking about, you see?
Okay.
But when a man becomes... Wait just a minute. Now, what I'm trying to say is what I learned through... I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I learned a lot from the Baptist tradition, one of which is to learn to ask intelligent questions. That's called the priesthood of believers. Every believer is a priest. You don't need a priest to tell you how to believe. You have to decide for yourself. I had to decide for myself that what I learned with this notion of the... See, there are many types of Baptists. For example, here's a book put out by the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. They're not fundamentalist Baptists. I have more in common with these people than I do with the fundamentalists, and I think they have more in common with me than fundamentalist Baptists. Now, if there is a God, here's my view. See what you think. If there is a God, if he's God, he has to be good and gracious. And that's my hope. If there is no God, then of course there's no hell in either way.
Okay. Well, we talked about hope right there and faith. Let me read you this one verse.
Go ahead.
That says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Right.
But without faith, it is impossible to please him.
Okay.
For he that cometh to the God must believe that he is,
Okay.
and that is a rewarder of them that is diligently seek him."
Okay.
So faith is a substance of things hoped for,
The
not
evidence of
seen.
Okay, now, that's the book of Hebrews, right?
Right.
Now, I grew up on that and knew it from my childhood, and I understood it. Okay? But I have other views. There's also a passage in the book of Hebrews says, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. I think that's barbaric and evil.
There is a remission of your sins.
Now, that's his point. And I'm saying that's evil to say God can't forgive unless there's blood. And that's simply wicked. Now, what I'm saying is, you're an atheist of type 2. What you call God is not good enough to measure up. Are you with me?
Well, first of all, don't call me an atheist.
Well, that's my viewpoint, not yours. I understand that.
Right. We're not. It's just when you hear the word, we are just saying that you don't believe in these other gods. That's all we meant by it.
And,
all right.
And
that does make you an atheist type 2. But
I have a high standard of what would count as a god.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to give away that standard to some Tom, Dick, or Harry view.
Yeah.
And I think this view of yours is simply too low a view to count. And that's not my kind of atheism, because I have higher standards for God. I'd rather say I have a high standard of God rather than to sell out to this low standard that I think you have.
Okay, so you was in a Baptist church one time.
Yeah, and
do you realize that just being baptized don't get you to heaven?
In fact, that's part of the Baptist view. That's a Church of Christ view, but I'm not Church of Christ.
Right. Well,
as a matter of fact, I've kept up.
Baptist getting saved gets you to heaven. Being baptized is just a profession of faith that you're not ashamed.
Exactly. You and I are in agreement on that.
But listen, Richard, we are out of time, man.
Well, thank you for calling in. I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, and I hope I didn't get aggravated with you because I am a Christian, and I apologize. But
no, you were fine.
I don't want anybody. The only reason I called you is I don't want anybody to go to hell.
Right.
And I feel like if you don't believe in God and you don't believe in Jesus and you ain't been saved, you'll go to hell. And that's just my belief.
How many people in the world do you think are going to hell? What percentage?
Well, hang on.
Quite a few of them.
No.
We got 1 minute left.
People on your viewpoint.
Joe, we got 1 minute left. We got to roll.
Okay, go ahead.
God bless you guys. I'll pray for you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Well, that was very kind of you.
But it was very nice. That was very good.
Just so you know, we're wrapping things up. Get out your pens and paper. This has been a show by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rashes Feast, Tennessee Freethought Forum. You can send us mail at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com, and is that Twitter at FFTV Knox? Is that what that is? All right. There's also the number that you can 215-2288. Wait, that's the live number. Well, anyhow. I'm John Clark.
I'm Joe Barnhart, and want to thank Richard for calling in.
Yeah, Richard and Charles. Both great calls.
Charles, too. Very good. Thank you.
Both great calls. And when you said any Tom, Dick, or Harry, I was thinking of Kiss Me, Kate, the play. I saw it 2 years ago at Clarence Brown. It was great. It was great. But
already Joe Blow says, I'm Joe. So I don't want to put down the words Tom, Dick, and Harry.
All right. Well, thank you.